السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. Tonight I'd like to start a topic, a very good discussion, is connecting those who are disconnected. And before I start with this talk, connecting those who are disconnected, I'm speaking more of those within the Muslim community, and I'm going to speak on targeting two sections or two groups of peoples. I'm just trying to send some invites. So, connecting with the disconnected. Some of the challenges of connecting to people who are disconnected with reality or disconnected with a situation. Some base of their disconnection is from being misinformed. Some of it being disconnected is based on being delusional, not knowing how to cope and deal with reality or situation. And as I said before, the disconnect for some is misinformation or not acquiring the right information for the right situation. So connecting those who are disconnected. Last few days, I have listened to different topics brought up by different individuals who all have the same background, and they are peoples who we look up to in our community for guidance and direction, but they have a disconnection with the peoples, and I like to make the connection with them or help them connect with the peoples. So some of the topics and the individuals I'm speaking about, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but from a group of individuals I see that many people look up to for guidance and information and religious knowledge. Some of these individuals are Imams, Du'at, callers of Islam, and some of them have platforms and many people following them, or people give them their ear on social media and off of social media. But some of these individuals, they are disconnected with the peoples. And because they have a disconnect to the peoples about the origins of their issues or the origins of the problems in the communities, due to them being either misinformed or delusional about the reality. So many of them, they browbeat the people in their community. Instead of listening to the people in the community, what they are doing is regurgitating things they have learned from other places. And some of these other places where they have learned certain things to deal with certain situations, if I'm speaking about a imam or a student of knowledge who study Islam, and if he study his religious studies, no matter what level he is at, or meaning that he has a degree or not, and most likely he studied overseas in the Islamic university, or he studied in the Islamic institution, which is studying under a particular scholar or scholars. And sometimes when we live in the Muslim world, as myself who lived in the Arab world, Muslim world, who those imams and some of those du'ats who have their influence about Islam, sometimes when they come back to America or Western society, they forget that the society that they learn Islam, that the Muslims in these countries, they had centuries to get it right. Islam been in these countries for centuries, and this is why they have these institutions for Islam to educate people about religious issues. So some of the brothers, we return back to America and we are disconnected and we're not able to connect with the peoples because some of the approaches that we are using to fix some of the social issues in our community or the religious problems in our community, in reality, there are social issues. And because we're not looking at the origin of the issue, where it originates from a conjunctive perspective, looking at the origin of the problem, we're not able to bring solutions, or the solutions that we are bringing, they're from Quran and Sunnah. We don't know how to implement them properly because we don't understand due to being disconnected to the origin of the problem. So I'm going to bring up an example. And this particular example is going to be a common example that we're going to see all over the internet, all over social media, all over Facebook, all over YouTube, in the urban communities, in the Black African American Muslim community. There's going to see many topics talking about Islamic marriages and nushuz, which means marital discourse. So we can find by different African American personalities speaking about marital issues and trying to address the issues in the community that are leading the people to have marital problems, which includes problems with raising children, problems with parents, problems between husband and wife, problem between the children and the parents. And many of us, we go on many dialogues and we're using some of the tactics, meaning that the imams or the scholars overseas are using, but we're not looking at the social issue, the core of the problems that's leading to the marital problems. So an ongoing discussion, I hear some Muslims who are imams and du'at and tulabul ilm who are discussing about in their inner city in America, in North America, in predominantly black places and black areas, that a lot of the Muslims there have a lot of issues. And we can see a lot of the marital issues, problems, is due to financial issues. And we know that because of financial issues, it leads to a lot of marital problems. And these problems are nothing new. We understand from Islam, from the Quran and Sunnah, that the man must have a certain type of level of capability, or a level of he has a level of responsibility, and some of these responsibility, or majority of them, are related to finances. Because الرجال قوانون على النساء بما فضل الله إلى آخر ayat, to the end of the ayat, that men have certain positions over women. So I see some imams and du'ats discussing this, and this is an ongoing discussion topic, talk always in the African American community. Somebody with intellect, Muslim multazim mutadayin, he would say to me, "Well, brother, for sure, the sheikh, the alim, the tulab al-ilm, he's always teaching Islam, he's always teaching fiqh, he's always teaching aqidah, he's always teaching miscellaneous topics, he's always dealing with the ongoing issues in the community. So for sure, there's going to be a repeating of a repetition or a repeating of certain topics over and over. Yes, that is ma'ruf. This is known, right? This is definitely known. But I can say specifically for the inner city in America, that topic pertaining to the teaching of fiqh related to marriage and marital discord, which is nushuz. So if you hear me say the word nushuz, I'm talking about marital problems. That we'll find that we always talking about marital problems, nushuz, in the African American Muslim community. No matter if you in US or UK or Canada, it's an ongoing problems. And this is something that many of the Muslims who are outside the African American Muslim community have noticed. This is an ongoing problem for us. And how I know? Because Muslims that I deal with, all of them are not from my nationality. Some of them are from different nationalities. Some of them are tulabul ilm. Some of them are shuyukh. And they talk about how they are consistently always counseling African American Muslims with marital problems. even on the level of students or students of knowledge in universities. Somebody told me before, one of my teachers had told me before, that he noticed that the African American Muslims, even in the Islamic universities, a lot of them, even while they're studying, they have marital problems. So we have a lot of these topics going on. And this is really the elephant in the room that many of us, we attempt to talk about, but we're not looking at the core reason for the problem. Where does originate the problems? Where does it really stem from? And this is where you're going to see the disconnect with some of the du'at and some of the students of knowledge who happen to be African American or Afro-Caribbean, who are in the inner city, that some of the disconnect they have, that they fail to realize and to look at, they fail to look at the origin of the problem. Some of them say the conclusion or the origin of the problem is due to the lack of responsibility. Others look at it, the lack of individuals and personalities or being accountable. And all these things that they notice might be somewhat true, but it's not looking at the origin of the issue. If you are black and you're talking, you're imam and you're dua and you're talking about marital discord and it's consistent problems that's with a specific group of peoples, then we have to start looking at where is the origin of this issue. And in many of the cases, especially if it's from North America, the origin of our issues, if you're going to say the solution for the problem, it's finances, or the solution for the problem is, as quoting, as I heard somebody say recently, is continual education, which is going to bring you finances, which is going to take you out of poverty. And if that is your answer to the solution, or that's the answer to the problem, the solution for the problem, then you're not recognizing and you're not making the connection that you need to make, is that the origin of the problem is why are they have financial problems. As I recently heard a du'at, an imam actually, who said that all the black African American Muslims, you're living in the hood and this person is black and people are shooting up and these things are happening, and why are we living in these situations? We need to change our condition. And the gentleman brought an ayat from Quran, Inna Allah la yughayru ma bi qawmin hatta yughayru ma bi anfusihim. He brought this ayat in Quran. Allah doesn't change the condition of the people until they change the condition of themselves. And changing the condition of the peoples is looking at the origin of the problem. So we could change our condition by looking at the aslu of the issue. And if you're African American, Afro-Caribbean, and you in North America, then the origin of the issue is the reason why you're in the hood, in the projects, and why you don't have no finances, and you're Muslim in the project, and you can't get out, or you're working is not, or whatever you're doing in your job is not enough. Then you have to start looking at, you're not special. Because you're Muslim, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have to deal with social issues in reality. The issue is that the reason why you're in the hood, that is by design, because you're not in the hood by yourself as a Muslim. And because we exclude ourselves from the remaining African Americans in the hood, in poverty, because we try to exclude ourselves because we think because we're Muslim that we're not like the remaining black people who are not Muslim in our community who are suffering financially. We think that we are different from them and we are outside the problem. Whether you're still living in the hood, then you're not outside the problem. You're in the problem. So you have to start looking at the origin of how did you get there? How did blacks get in these predicaments? And when you start looking at the origin of why you're in there and why you're in these areas and why you're in these financial situations, then the origin of the problem is you've been put there by design by the government. If you're black and you're American And you're in this situation is by design. How did your ancestors come to America? Well, your ancestors came to America through slavery. And America is a new country. So slavery in America in history is recent. And your ancestors came out of slavery recently. And because many of the du'ats in America don't want to look at Americans' history and its mistreatment of blacks and systemic racism that excluded blacks from finances, this is why you're black in the hood and you're black in the hood and got no money. This is why you're in the hood as a Muslim, African American Muslim. You're in the hood because you're black. And because of systemic racism, they don't care about you being Muslim. They see because you're black. And the design of the purpose of systemic racism is to put black people, exclude them from being from the ruling party. When black so-called was free in America and it's free from slavery, they wasn't constipated with anything. The government didn't give them no finances. The government didn't give them anything. Rather yet, the people who enslaved them, when the government freed them, the slaves, it gave the slaveholders money for their losses of freeing their slave, because slave equal property equals money. Slaves was the American dream. So if you were imam and you happen to be black and you have no connection to the reality of the black American reality, then you have no connection to the people's. And because you have no connection to the reality of why we're in that predicament, you will never find the solutions. That's why you're still reading the fiqh books about marriage and marriage discord, but you're noticing, you're saying, okay, some people are saying, okay, the problem is need more money. You need to continue education. Well, brother, I'm sorry to tell you that there's many African American Muslim who are educated, who have master's degrees, and their wife have master's degree or higher education than the husband, and they still have marital problems, and they still are going through divorce, and they're not living in the hood. And they're not living in the hood. And they still have the marital problems, and they still have the divorce. Because we're not looking at the origin of the issue, slavery, how slavery impacted the black American. We still have the United States, in America right now, police shooting black people for no reason. We still have in America right now the mass incarceration of black people. You think because you say La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, and you're a black African American, that, oh, you somewhat untouchable from systemic racism? That's why you're in the hood still. And if we feel that the solution for their problem of the African American Muslim is continual education, getting more finances, then you gotta look at another reality. If you're saying that is the solution for the African American Muslim, is that they continue their education, the wife get a job, the husband get a second job, if that's the case, who's gonna raise your children? If the wife is outside the home working and the father's outside the home working, who's raising the Muslim children in your household? Then we're not looking at another situation. If continual education is the solution, then that means that taking on more student loans, more riba loans. If we're going to say continual education is a solution, education is not free in the United States of America. Education after high school in America is not free. So are you delusional in where you live? And then if we say that continual education is going to lead to the finances, then inside those same black neighborhoods in the hood where these Muslims are working and living at, where they're building their masjid at in their community, then you look at the reality, you look at the business in their neighborhood, none of them are owned by any of the black African American Muslim. Rather yet, the business in their neighborhood, the corner stores, the grocery stores, those bodegas, they are owned by Arab Muslims, Asian Muslims, and Latinos. And if I go look at the situation between the Arab Muslims who own in these black poor neighborhoods all the business there, none of these guys have a basic education. They don't even have no higher learning. They have no college degree. They have not even a bachelor degree. Neither do they even have an associate degree. Neither do they even have a high school diploma, some of them. Because many of the Yemeni, the truth in New York, many of them own business. A certain portion of them, a certain, like maybe 20 to 30% of them, they are illiterate. But they own business in your black neighborhood making $2,000 to $3,000 a day. And they're not doing no continual education. How did these Yemenis and these Muslims from other places get business in these neighborhoods? Because they've been set up by the government. The same government who created the black hood, the black projects, the black poverty. The same government who made these conditions put these peoples in there. So you're going to tell the Muslim, the African American Muslim, the solution to the problem is continue education, but you want to look at the origin, how they got there. The government put them there. The government practicing systemic racism put them there. And if you don't look and recognize that systemic racism affects the financial outcome or the finances of the individuals in the finance of blacks, if you don't recognize that the financial issue is connected to systemic racism, you will never find any solutions for the African American Muslim. Because you're not recognizing that the origin of the problem is systemic racism. And this is the disconnect that many of the brothers who claim they're Imams or they're Du'ats and they're Tulab who are in the inner city, this is the disconnect that you guys have. And your disconnect either is based upon either you're delusional and don't want to recognize our history and how it impacts the people today, how it impacts our pockets, how it impacts our finances, how it impacts our marriages, how it impacts our children, and you don't want to recognize that. Either or you delusional or you are ignorant of your own people's situation. Rather yet, you are the reality of systemic racism. Your opinion, your view is the reality. You are affected by the systemic racism, which does not want to recognize the reason why you're in those situations. Because those black hoods, those black projects, those black neighborhoods, black people didn't make them. The government made them. You was put there. And you need to start having an understanding about, in America, if you're going to preach Islam and you want to recognize red zoning is real, you don't want to recognize that red zoning is real and affected and impacted black peoples. And if you don't want to recognize that systemic racism is the reason why we're in these situations, and you don't want to recognize that, you will never find a solution. And that's why many of you guys are still preaching all these things about the shoes, marital issues, and you're not finding any solutions. Either you're preaching everything what Islam say. The reason why you're not finding the solutions in the community, because you're not recognizing what putting them in those financial situations and those marital problems. Because the Yemeni guy in your hood don't have no continuing education. I'm telling you, half of the Yemeni in New York, or maybe 20 or 30% of them who own these bodegas and business, they don't even have a bachelor degree. They don't even have an associate degree. They don't even have a high school diploma. And some of them are illiterates. And I know because I work with Yemeni people, some of them are illiterates who have these business, but they're making money and they're not participating in no continuing education. And they making money in these same black hoods. Matter of fact, in some of the black communities, you probably going to their business to get money to pay your masjid's rent that the African American Muslim can't pay. You go to some of the Yemeni who got business in your neighborhood, who's not have no college degree, not even a high school diploma, who some of them are illiterates. You're begging them for money to take care of your masjid in your community in the black neighborhood. Then you want to browbeat black peoples, the same black people in the community. You want to beat them up because you also affected by systemic racism. And your approach is to deal with the black African American Muslim. You don't have a reality check, because reality check reality check is that maybe when you in an Islamic institution, it didn't teach you how to deal with social issues of black peoples or social issues. They leave that up on you. But inside the Arab country, they deal with social issues. There's a talk. If I get the chance, I will link it to my comment. And if you'd like to see it, I will link it to my comment. A great discussion by an Egyptian woman in Egypt. I don't think it's in Arabic. I don't think it's in English. It might be in Arabic language, and it might be Egyptian dialect. I will link it. If you would like to see it, I will link it to the comment on my YouTube page. So make sure you go to my YouTube page, which is Abul, Baraa, Muhammad, Amreeki, just like it is here on my YouTube, and subscribe. I will upload this video and will link it. There's a discussion in Egypt. Listen to a documentary of an Egyptian woman who's a professor, not in religious studies, a professor in Egypt. And they want to deal with the high rate of divorce in Egypt. And I spend most of my Islamic education, or my time, my tarbiyah al-Islamiyah, from Egyptian peoples. So in Egypt, the woman was talking about the high rate of divorce. So the government made a program, and this woman is part of the program, where that they give counseling to Egyptian people, because the Egyptian women cause a lot of problems to the Egyptian man over finance, and Egypt is a third world country. And the woman talks to the family and tell the woman that, you know what? The reality is we are poor. We are poor. All this money you wishing you in this fantasy world, your husband can't provide this for you. So you can't make the marriage based on monetary issues, financial issues. If you base your marriage on that, then your marriage won't last. And she tried to teach them how to be supportive for each other without being rich. So when you're in the Islamic universities learning Islam, they have these peoples in their countries doing the social issues, but they just don't tell you. They don't broadcast their problems. See, Arabs, they smart. They don't want people looking down at them. So they don't broadcast to the foreigners their issues and those peoples who handle the issues, the social issues of their peoples. So you come back to America and you study Islam, and you come back and you want to beat up the people saying, hey man, you guys got to be better. You got to look at the origin of the problem, where it originates from, and then from there, how to deal with it. In that cases, many of you guys don't have hands-on training, because learning from the textbook and learning from the sheikh's mouth is not hands-on. It's not hands-on. You're not with the sheikh when he going to people. Maybe the man beat his wife, she got a black eye. The sheikh ain't gonna take you to that man's house. So what you might see the sheikh, if you in Islamic university, you see the sheikh only inside the classroom. You see the sheikh only when he walks in the masjid. You see the sheikh only when he's giving durus, unless you living with the sheikh and you traveling with him and you living with him. So a lot of these social issues, the brothers, some of you guys don't know how to tackle it. So you can't continue to beat up the people. And the purpose of the video is connecting those who are disconnected. If you want to know about black issues and black psychology, how the black man think and the black woman think, then you need to step outside of your realm, step outside of your comfort zone or your Islamic comfort zone. And you might have to read books and have discussion with people who are either psychologists, social workers who deal with black peoples and minorities, and start learning about what are the social issues and problems of black folks, Latinos, brown people in America, and where does it stem from. Then try to bring, when you understand the origin of it, this Islamic solution. Because some of those marital issues y'all guys talking about, it's a mental issue. It's a mental issue. You're saying it's a financial issue. No, it's a mental issue. Because slavery have impacted the minds of every black American. I don't care who they are. Even you as the du'at, as the callers of Islam, or the Imams, or Amma giving dawah, and you happen to be black, even you are affected by slavery and you might not know it. And because you say La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, doesn't mean that you understand you remove all these social issues from yourself and your thinking. Doesn't mean that you remove it. Because the Arabs themselves, they're also an impact by colonialism. And colonialism and white supremacy is the same thing. And how it impacts the peoples, no matter what skin color they are, it impacts them the same. So that even the Arabs have an issue with colonialism. It impacts them. That's why the Arab man, he's fascinated by white European and white Caucasian women. He's in love with his colonial slave master woman. You go to an Arab country, they love white women. They love them. Love them. Why is that? I even have one of my teachers once told me, gave me an analogy. Something about usul fiqh. He wanted to give me an analogy. And this guy, because he doesn't understand the psyche of a black African American person, he tried to give me an analogy that an Egyptian Arab will understand. He says, you'll love the white woman face better than the brown woman. Right? He said because the brown face in Egypt is everywhere. So when you see the white woman's face, you will love and attracted to it because you don't see it everywhere. In fact, he was talking about Mustalah Hadith and gave me an example of some words in Mustalah Hadith, what they mean. He brought this example. I'm laughing because I'm not Egyptian. So he's talking to me like I'm an Egyptian, because Egyptian, you understand that. Oh yeah, something that's very common. Okay, the black face, the brown face in Egypt, yeah, everybody got brown face. All the women got brown face, but the white face, yeah, it's very rare. So it's very special. And I'm laughing when he's telling me this. I'm telling him I'm not Egyptian, so I'm not fascinated by white women. You're affected by colonialism. That's why you love the white face, because you love your slave master. And this is the people who teaches Islam, and you're gonna come back to America and you're understanding how to teach and reach your people from people like this. Come on, man. You're gonna be very much disconnected. So you have to start learning and picking up books and reading from black authors who most likely not going to be Muslim. Psychology, sociology, the impact of slavery in America on blacks, the impact of systemic racism on black, the history of red zoning. If you want to talk about economics and finances, why these blacks in these live in this area, the government set up these places for them to live. You don't know that. And if you don't know that, you shouldn't be dealing with black folks trying to fix their problems if you don't understand that the government made these places to trap you in, and only if your solution for them to get out this predicament is getting continuing education, which means you going to another white institute and taking out a student loan, a riba loan from another white institution. That's So you're gonna be always trying to working hard to pay back this debt just for you to what? Bring in extra income, when the Arabs in your neighborhood don't have no college degree and don't take no loans from the bank to open up a business, and the government set them up. And you're going to talk about, you're going to beat black folks, the black African American Muslim, you're going to browbeat them with your words? Are you Majnoon? Either or, like I said, you're disconnected from your peoples due to either you're ignorant based on you don't have the information historically what happened, or you do know it but you delusional and you don't want to recognize these things. Because them Arabs who live in your who have business in your neighborhood, who's banking it up, who's making $3,000 to $4,000 a loan, and a day, $3,000 to $4,000 loan from a bodega or corner store or grocery store, $2,000 to $3,000 a day he's making. He's illiterate. He's illiterate. He's illiterate. He can't even read and write in Arabic. He's illiterate, some of them. He's illiterate, and he owns business, and he has no continuing education, and he's making money, more money than even you, and then you're going to his store, asking him for donations to take care of your masjid and the finances in your masjid. You are very much disconnected from the black peoples, and with this type of thinking and mind thinking, you will never bring any type of solution, even from Quran and Sunnah, to your own peoples, because you're not recognizing the origin of the problem. Instead of telling those Muslims in your community to continue education, which means getting a student loan to go back to school. I don't care if it's even a trade school in New York City, A trade school in New York and the East Coast, you got to take a student loan, a trade school. Student loan. Go back to college, student loan. Putting yourself more in debt. You should tell the Muslims, Afro-American Muslim, put your money together and get a business, start a business, own business. Start a business, even if it's small. So if you're not looking at the origin of the problem, we never bring the solution. I will end on that note. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa shalla wa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.